I'll be honest, I am a fan of setting boundaries, but occasionally when I've set boundaries with someone that I am in a relationship with, they have accused me of being controlling. So what is the difference between boundaries and either being controlling or just ultimatums? That's what we're covering in today's video. Hi, I'm Jeff Campbell from DivorcedParentsClub.com, and I'm glad you're here with me. So ultimately, ultimatums, or being controlling, put pressure on the other person to do exactly what you want them to do. Whereas boundaries, they kind of do accomplish the same thing in a way, but boundaries are more about you than about them. Boundaries invite opportunities to grow together. They invite opportunities to communicate and to compromise. An ultimatum is a hard and fast line that is, if you do this again, I'm out of here. Whereas a boundary is letting them know, hey, I'm not comfortable with this. Can we talk about it? And don't worry, I am going to give some examples, some specific examples a little bit later in the video. So really, there's two main differences between a boundary and an ultimatum. One is the intent behind the words, and the other is how you deliver the message. And how you deliver the message is mission critical if you want the other person to hear you and understand and not react defensively. So how do you set boundaries without it being an ultimatum? So really, it comes down to your mindset. The point of a boundary is not to control your spouse. The point of a boundary is to make better choices for you and what you need from them in order to feel good about the relationship. Let me give you an example. Let's say that a woman is setting a boundary with her boyfriend or husband, and the boyfriend or husband has a tendency to go out every weekend with the guys, and do guys' night out every Friday and Saturday. So let's assume that's the scenario, and the woman is having the conversation with the guy. If she gives him an ultimatum, it's going to sound a whole lot like this. I hate it when you're gone every weekend. You don't care about me at all. If you don't start showing up on the weekends and quit hanging out with the guys, I am done. I am out of here. We are breaking up. So that is an ultimatum. And obviously there's a lot of anger behind those words, maybe some justifiable anger. I'm not judging that. But what's the end result that we want? What's the end result that she wants? Is it to get him to change his mind? Because that is not the right way to go about getting him to change his mind. But what if she did the same thing with the same end goal in mind, but as a boundary instead of an ultimatum? That might sound a little something like this. Hey, I know you like hanging out with your friends, and I want you to have time with your friends. I don't want to monopolize your time. But when you go away every weekend and leave me alone by myself, it makes me question how much you even really love me. It makes me desperately miss you and want to spend time with you. And I don't understand why every weekend feels like this. And I need to feel loved on a regular basis. That's just who I am. And I really want to be in a relationship with you, but I really want to be in a relationship with you where I feel that love on a regular basis. And can we talk about this? Can we work on this? Can we compromise on this? Because if we can't, I'm going to have some real soul searching to do, and I'm going to have to make a decision about what works for me. So as you see, the end result of both of those conversations was the same goal. She wanted the same thing in both scenarios, but each conversation was radically different in terms of how it was delivered. And the latter is much more likely. If the guy's a good guy and cares about her, the latter is a much better way to go in terms of getting him to see her point of view, getting him to understand and empathize with her, and getting him to realize that he's damaging the relationship by doing what he's doing. And so it's a great way to go if you want them to actually change their behavior. If you just want to piss them off so that the breakup happens right then and there, great. Go ahead and lay down that ultimatum. But most of us don't actually want to break up when we have those kinds of conversations. So the way to go is to not make it an ultimatum and not come at it from a place of anger or fear. Real quick before we keep going, if you like this video and you want to see more videos like it, hit that like button for me and the subscribe button too. It sends a great signal to YouTube. They help me grow my channel, and it's a great way to say thank you to me for taking the time to make these videos. So how do you know if what you're currently doing is setting a boundary or giving an ultimatum? And I've kind of talked about this a little generally, but more specifically, boundaries are not about telling other people what they can and cannot do. That's just not the point of a boundary. Again, the boundaries are about you and what you need. It's not about them. Being controlling, which is ultimately what an ultimatum is, really comes from a place of fear. Maybe we're afraid of what they might do when they're away from us. Maybe in the case of the woman that we did the scenario with earlier, maybe she's afraid that her boyfriend or husband is going to cheat on her when he's away from her. So if she comes at it from that standpoint, she's coming at it from a place of fear. Now, if he has cheated on her, of course, then that's a realistic fear. But if it's just her own insecurity talking, that's not realistic. And it's not fair to put that on him if he hasn't actually done anything to warrant her reacting that way. So we don't ever want to come at it from a place of fear and insecurity unless, again, they have actually done something to elicit those feelings in us. But a lot of the time, we're just anxious and insecure because of unrelated things, maybe our childhood, maybe how we were raised, previous relationships. A lot of the time we come at it from that standpoint and it has nothing to do with our current partner. So we have to be mindful of that, and we have to not make decisions or say things to them based on triggers from past events. So let's say that you routinely set boundaries. You're comfortable setting boundaries, but how do you know, or maybe you want to know, if you've taken things too far and you've set too many boundaries and your boundaries are too insurmountable for most people to accomplish, and you just want to know if you've taken things too far. So the first is that you routinely lose people in your life because of your boundary setting. The next is that you don't really listen to the other person when you're setting a boundary. You're hard and fast and you're inflexible, and you just stick to that one hard line that you drew without any room for compromise or even conversation. And the last one is really that you don't really care about the other people's needs. You only really care about your own, and you're very quick to just say, this is what I need, this is what I expect, and if I don't get what I expect, then I'm done. If you're being that way, then that's a clear sign that your boundary setting has gone too far, and you're going to have a very hard time maintaining even friendships, but definitely maintaining relationships until you learn to mellow that a little bit. Now, sometimes you find yourself in a relationship with someone with narcissistic tendencies, or maybe even full-blown narcissistic personality disorder. And in that case, the narcissist is likely to react to boundaries very differently than the average person would who doesn't have those tendencies. Ultimately, narcissists think of themselves as special, as gifted, as above the rules. They think the rules don't really apply to them, and they think they are better than other people. And they think they're entitled to things that quote-unquote normal people would not think they are entitled to. And because they don't possess healthy boundaries, they also react very, very strongly to you setting boundaries with them, even if you're doing it in a kind, loving, and respectful manner. So if you are laying down kind, loving, and respectful boundaries, and you're getting enormous pushback, anger, hostility, frustration, gaslighting from your partner, that's a good sign that they have some narcissistic tendencies, maybe even full-blown narcissistic personality disorder. And in that case, it may be very difficult for you to sustain a long-term healthy relationship with them. I'm not qualified to judge anybody in that regard, but it is something for you to think about if those are the kinds of reactions you're getting from boundary setting. So all of us who have ever set boundaries with a partner have had a situation where the partner reacted poorly to the boundary setting. So what do you do in that case? So first, I want you to remember that you can't control anything other than your own actions, statements, and thoughts. You can't control them. You can't control anything else. So it's a waste of your time to even try. But you can control your reaction to their reaction to your boundary setting. And if they're upset at what you've said, I always find that it's a better strategy to ask questions rather than make statements. And it's also a great strategy to not try and match their energy if they're angry. Try and de-escalate the situation by remaining calm. That's not always easy, especially if their anger is taking some slightly inappropriate forms. But I want you to stay calm, and I want you to ask them questions. Do let them know that it's not okay for them to disrespect your boundaries. Do let them know that it's not okay to cross your boundaries intentionally, especially repeatedly. But ask them what it is about that boundary that they didn't like. Did they not understand it clearly? Did they understand it and intentionally violate it? Did they accidentally violate it? Ask good, high-quality questions to get a good, high-quality response. And the more questions you ask that aren't inflammatory and the calmer you stay, the more likely it is that they will begin to de-escalate in themselves and you can have a more civil conversation. I will say, though, that what you want to avoid is a situation where your partner routinely disrespects and violates your boundaries. Because if you allow that to happen more than once, that's on you. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, as the saying goes. And if you are allowing them to walk all over you, essentially, they're going to lose respect for you and they're going to keep violating your boundaries because you've shown that you're not congruent with your words. And if you are the guy in that scenario, the woman is looking to you for a strong masculine presence in most cases. Most men and women who are in heterosexual relationships have that dynamic to some degree. Of course, there are exceptions to that. I am stereotyping here. But generally speaking, the woman is looking to the guy to be congruent with his words. That's what masculinity is all about. Being strong, communicative, and being a person of action and someone who follows through on what they say they're going to do. So if you've set a boundary and she routinely violates it and you let her get away with it, you're telling her that you're not congruent with your words. You're not masculine. You're not strong. She will begin to feel unsafe in your presence because of that, and she will begin to lose respect for you, and that will cause her to violate your boundaries even more. So you don't ever want to let that happen. Now, I have talked in this video about being anxious and coming at a place of anxiety and things of that nature. And if you do feel like maybe you have an anxious attachment style, that is something that you're going to want to focus on. And I have a recent video on my channel where I go into anxious attachments, what that looks like, what it means, and how to get past it. So I want you to check out this video right up here, right now on my channel, if that sounds like the situation that you're in. But for now, I'll see you in the next video.